how to create a Stellaris mesh for your portrait spot. So when you open up Blender, if you go to Edit, Preferences, this is where we're going to install your meshes. And it's good to install all these type of meshes. If you don't have them already activated, you could type them in, search right here, and then you could install these ones. Some, like for example, IO PDX mesh. We'll go and talk about that one in a second. Make sure you have these ones checked marked. There might be a few that you might have to download if you want them. It's not too important. It's nice to have. These are the nice haves. This is a need right here. So this is what we're going to be talking about anyways, is this one. To install that one, we have to go on the website. I'll give you this link so you'll be able to click on it. It'll bring you over here to Ross G. Go ahead and use this code and download it. Once you download it, know where the directory is, and then go ahead and hit the install and find that zip, and then you're good to go. Make sure it's checked right here. Make sure it's checked, and then what it does is it gives you this. See there where it shows this little 2 arrows? Go ahead and click it. Go to PDX, and then this is how you load your mesh. This is how you load your animations. Those are the two things we're going to first import. So if you were to go load mesh, and for example, we could go to Stellaris. You can find Stellaris. I don't know what type of operating system you are. Just go to the local directory of where your Stellaris is. And then all we're doing is going to graphics, portraits. Under portraits, oops. I meant to say models. Models. And then portraits. Any of these will work. You could grab on human, for example. You have all these human ones. You got the new human mesh. For example, we could just click on any female one. Mesh already popped up. Good. We also have the light, the cube, and all this. We need to delete those. Get them out of our collections. Now, using shift in the middle, we could move around. If you were to use numpad 1, it makes it flat. Numpad 2, 3, it's all going to give you different angles. 4, 5, 6. So using your numpad is great. Numpad 1. And then go ahead and scroll till you have a good size. And then we have the mesh. If the mesh doesn't pop up, go ahead and load the animation. Since I went to new human, I'm going to use a new human. I'm going to use one of the idle animations, hit import. And these are all the variables. When you import animations, you'll be able to actually see the points and the dots doing something. They're right over here. And then this is the animation that's being projected. So typically, if you see stuff like this right here, that's really bad, but it could still work. So it just depends on the layers. It might look bad on the body, but if it's the clothes, for example, not sure. Oh, it's clothes. You might not see the difference. What I mean by that is if you were to go to the body, right, you see the animation. Right over here is the material properties. Go ahead and click over here and then find the properties. If it's not, I'm gonna see if this is already preloaded. Go over here to view port shading. It already shows you. So this is what I mean by it. So you see those little triangles? It's not good to have that, but I but that's why you have so many layers. So let me see if the layers show it. Yeah, the layers show it too. So this might get away when you convert it to a mesh. You probably won't see it because more than likely the animation we see right here, they might cut it off at some point, or you just can't see the subtle lines. It's really just the jars of the lines. What I mean by that is the body. So the body, if we were to look at the edit, how these lines are, is pretty much what's getting like jangled up, for example. So, but as long as we go to edit, take off this lock object mode, that way we could change layers and they will be on their mode, like object mode, for example. Body will be, I can switch it to edit, and then if I were to go back, it should go back. But either way, I have to go. We're gonna learn weights, so we click on weight paint. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and uncheck these. It's the base model we're gonna see anyways. And then this is the rig, the bones. This is what moves everything around, the blinking and whatnot. So, for example, we could go, gotta blink. If we like this type of animation, eventually it's gonna go back. It does this thing. So you could find the idle point. Let's just say 30 is their idle point. So what I mean by that is we go to pose mode, the body. We're going to go to weight. I wonder if the head, all right, yeah, the head's doing what the head's supposed to be doing. All right, so once we have that, same with this, go ahead and go to weight. It shouldn't, when you click on anything, it should be like pure blue. If you see green and stuff, that's really either a bug on my end or them with how they have theirs. Since we're exporting with this plugin, I don't know if it changes anything or whatnot, or if it did anything. So this right here is the gist, right? The bread and butter. What weight does is if I were to control left click, I clicked right here. If I were to, since this is highlighted, if I were just to move the frame, you're going to see this move also. Red means it's going to move like 100%, and then it's going to orange, yellow, green, and lighter green. So it's slightly going to move. It's like a little slider. I prefer not using the red as much unless it's like in the center mass. But if you're using the edge and everything, it's great, but it just moves a lot more. What I mean by that is we could go ahead and click on the the rig, go ahead and left click, go ahead and go to move. We can use these to align. So if I were to just move right here, it's moving. So if you notice the lines right here, the red, the green, the blue, it stretches more, if you notice, and it's not as jaggedy right here, right? So if you were to go to the body, look at that green and the blue. It's not, if you blend a lower weight, it's great. When you have red, if you notice, it's precise, right? So you want to be using this precisely the way you want to. If you're just doing emotions, I prefer not to use so much red and orange. Yellow, you could get away easily with half the weight by 0.5, for example. So if I were to color this on the body, it's on there, the draw, and you just left click in. So there's a little difference by it now, if you notice. Oh, oops. It's because I didn't save a point. So if I were to go back here, start moving it, there's a bit more difference, in my opinion, of things staying together. It's kind of hard when they have a mesh that's kind of like cut out in this direction. I don't prefer a cutout section like this. It's good if you're doing it. It's just a lot more work on you to do something like this, using this mesh and whatnot. So what I will provide you guys is my own mesh. I have a folder in this DIY humans. It's going to be called Guide Open Me. So I'm going to copy that, paste it right here. You got this human 2A, human 1, human 1. Might be slight different variances, but for example, if I want an armor set and a body, use this human mesh. You get away with this. What I mean by that is this already has a closed set for you. So all you have to do is, if you want to see what you're doing, is go right here, area, and then you could use, I guess, Blender, right? This Blender image. Now it pops this up. Go ahead and hit play, and then you see the motion going. So we got that going. The reason why I have it up more is because, do you see where this red axis and everything is? It's not gonna end this rig. It's pretty much, the rig is saying the center mass is not gonna be, it's gonna probably see about this much, somewhere around this line. It's gonna probably see somewhere around here. So anything below it, it's not gonna pick up on Stellaris. But it looks smooth when you're dragging stuff, and it doesn't look like it's like right here. If you were to do any animations, it's just gonna look like it's floating. So it's good to have space and the image kind of drag downwards a little bit, and you could use this space for anything that you want. Same with like up here, unless you scale it. If you're scaling it, you're going to see more of this whole rectangular. So it's up to you how you have it, but you have a huge gap, so you could use it for any minor details. Like for example, you could have like eyes or anything that you could change the colors automatically if you want to add another layer or whatnot. You could do all sorts down below or whatnot. It's or you could use um, this version. This one, same thing. Go over here, and this one's not popping up. Just going to Control V. I don't see anything, but with graphic models, portrait, we use the template, or we use human one or something. So if I were to open this image, realistically, this one, like I said, you're not really going to see much. You see how this rectangular is more down? So now you have about, I would like to say, like this much of free space that's empty. What I mean by that as empty is that, or around about here, is free. As pretty much if you were to have the image of this all black and you have anything that you want as special effects and you want to bring it to come right here, you can. Make some stuff glow effects. You can do all sorts of things. The reason why this image is like this, it gives you a huge gap of judgment in there. So it might be confusing unless I pop up Stellaris. So my mod might conflict with my other mod. Either way, we'll see how it goes. So when you go to new game, you're testing your animations, you're looking at your appearances, your um, your portraits that you created. So, for example, template. See right here how it cuts off. The image of the mesh is just gonna put up right here, right? So if I look at Blender for this one, it's like right here. It's not giving the full thing, or might be right here, somewhere around there. All this is free space, so when I drag it up and everything, it looks smooth, but I don't need all this gap. So if you were to, it's there just to have. So it's easy to customize, easy to tinker. So now going back to animations and the weight, if I were to go to weight paint for this one, for example, shouldn't be seeing those, but might be my mistake when I did animations. So if I were to, oh, let's pop in one of them. That's good. So this one right here controls the weight of the image. What I mean by that is if I were to hit play, you see this moving all this green? So it's just moving kind of something like this, right? And what is that doing is it's just moving this. So if I were to change the weights, and I started drawing over it, let's just say, it's just exaggeration. The face, everything is, you know, moving super exaggerated, funky, and whatnot. And that's what the weights are for. So if you were to hit Control Z, we're back here. You can change it however you want. You can add more, you can add less. You can just change one part, you can change whatever. Just know what's moving. So you got your 0, and then here. Let's say I just don't want this. Whatever this is moving, right? I don't want this. You could either go to 0 and this point. So right here, left click it, Control C. Now we copied it. Go to your point, Control V. Now it's back to resting point. Go ahead and press I, and then go to location, rotation, scale, and custom properties. Click it. Now we save that point. So now only this is moving, this section. It's that simple. Don't like it, Control Z, and you're back to where you are. So if you like this animation, well, all you have to do is go to 0, copy this. You have your breathing or whatever animation. Now you just set it to 0 again, and you just repeat that, and then you have animation. Unless your motion of animation leads you to another spot or a blinking, however you want. You don't have to mess with a lot of these bones, right? They're there, but you can literally, if you want to mess with them, they don't have to be lined up. Nothing has to be lined up. All it has to do is be lined to your weights. For example, and make sure they're not tied to anything else. If you were to move something, make sure it doesn't move anything else, and then you're fine. So if I were to go right here, and I just click on this one has this motion, right? It's not too much over there, so let me like shrink this. You could use right here your radius. You could change it right here, or right by the P, the brackets. You could use that like in Photoshop to change them. And this is right here, when you add weights, it's following these patterns of your mesh. Whatever you meshed it to, how much you divided it, that's what it's going to go off of. See, I just use squares for this, or rectangles. It was easier to do, but also you just got to be mindful of how it is when it becomes into weight. So things are going to look smoother, but you also, for example, like right here, if I were to go back to pose, move this one, right? Let's go back to move. If I were to slowly move it, see how it's doing this? It's not really dragging how I want it. This is not going to create a blink, right? So you got to be mindful of where you're having it, and maybe it needs to be, so for example, the weight. If I were to go to the weight, it needs to be upper. So if the eye's right here, you want to be blending more on the upper end. And to do that, you have to go to edit, and you see this. So it's going to be really hard to get what you want. So you might have to move the image down more and then blend these areas. So when you drag it, it's actually going to have the eye go down pristine. But if you were to do that and you create more portraits, then the eyes are going to have to match those locations. So it's really hard to get the eyes right if you're going to do multiple portraits in the same variant. So what I mean by that is this phenotype and right here. So if these eyes aren't in the same spot, they're going to kind of look jaggedy like that. So it's hard to get the blinking motion the way you want to if you use that. So I prefer not using it, but it's there. So for example, oh, see, my mod just overwritten my humans, but if I were to look at this, the breathing motion and whatnot, it's not really much is moving other than this, right? You can move the head slightly. You could do all that tweening just by moving these points of the bone. So however you want to move the joints, you can just add the weights to them. Impose, go back to weights. So get used to like using control click, shift click, and using shift to move with the middle button. Those are all important. Also using numpad 1 to get back into position. Those are the key pointers. Remember about A. This is how you highlight everything. If you do a lot of them and you can't remember which one it is, it's best to hit A, hit I, and then set that location. And then go ahead. So if you moved stuff already, for example, right, and you wanted that position, hit I, and then save it. So there you go. When you're happy with your designs, go ahead and hit save mesh, save it, save your animation, go ahead and save it, export it. Make sure when you save your animation that you're on the rig, or it'll give you an error. So make sure you have that. Mesh, it doesn't matter, it's already tied in the set. That way you can have different animations and whatnot if you were to have different rigs. But that's that. That's how you edit, how you control, how you move things. This one right here, for example, only has one body. So if you wanted to add a new one to have like armors in this set, might be a little tricky, but you'll have to go to create. First, you would just copy this one. Let's just say, yeah, you like the rectangle, so it's just easy cut and paste, right? So you copied it. You got this modifier. Let's just call PDX close, and then go ahead and hit create. PDX close. We're going to go ahead and go to mesh portraits, close, hit apply material selected, hit OK. Make sure this is highlighted. Hopefully it is. And then should be, when we click here, you see that PDX close. We don't want this one anymore. That's the old base mesh, so we want to delete that. There, now we got the close. And Should be all set with it. So if I were to save it and whatnot, it should be connected. If I were to give a different set of armor or whatnot, I don't. Go in a base color or whatnot, you could kind of test. I don't have anything for this set, for example, so I don't know if this, see what this one is. No. Gotta see if I have anything. We got this one, female clothing, I think. This one. We could just use that one, for example, I guess. So it's not the right image. I don't know if, yeah, they're still white, I believe. So we're gonna see. Yeah, so they're still white. So you're gonna have that layer. So it's not, wouldn't be, that image wouldn't be good for Stellaris unless you have it transparent. But for testing purposes, we'll just have that. And then, for example, we'll look at this one, all body. Oops. Got too many templates in it. So we're just gonna go off of this, right? We got this one, and we got this one. So obviously it's way too big with the scaling. It's the incorrect mesh for this tutorial, but for these two images, for example. But if you notice, right, the cutoff, so the close is going to show this much, and then right here. It's going to be hard because nothing's really transparent, so it's not good images to show this type of work. But since, for example, this right here, all that white is covering, if this was transparent, you will see the other behind the layer. So and let's see. So if I were to use, yeah, that one's white, not transparent. So for example, if I were to go ahead and skip all of this, go to human mesh, right? Let's go ahead and change these files. So a guide open me. We're gonna go to the graphic, portraits, or my bad, model, portraits, then human 0. We're going ahead and use where it says female base 1. I'm gonna open that one, right? So here's the head. And then the close, if I were to open this close, and if I were to change this, go back to the directory, and if I were to go back to the armor, right? So now I got the armor, and I got that. So even though they're linked, it's not really showing correctly, but realistically, when you save it to the mesh, if you were to use that one, the human mesh, you will get this, right? So here's the variant. So the clothing, this is off the base. 1 and 2 is really done in this template. These ones, I'll have to re-edit the base image, right? Because if you can't see this, there's some blending issues that I didn't save right on Photoshop. So, but this is off the base of this phenotype 1 for women. The clothing. So what I mean by this, if I were to open up DOI humans, if I were to go graphics, model, portraits, and human 01, if I were to open these ones up and Notepad, if I were to go ahead and open all of these, I'll redo it. If I were to open all these 3 into whatever source you want to use, you have animations, your entities, and then your mesh. Your portraits, right here's your mesh. Here's your variable of your mesh. Here's your file directory of that mesh. And here's the animations of that mesh. This is the variable of the mesh. So you would have to get it right here from your naming scheme. So name whatever you want. You can name everything. However, just know that this is your file. Where the directory is, it's in this one. I don't have to add the slashes or anything. It's here. Same with the variable. This variable needs to be unique because it's going to override other people's mods. For example, how this template mod is going to override Wolfian mod. So it's best to have a different naming scheme. That way you don't overwrite someone else's work. If you're going to make a mod, it's best to have it your own. Unless you're trying to change Stellaris' mod, then it's it's good. Whatever you're trying to do. So here's entities. The human scale of her is at 0.65. Here's the entity, and here's the mesh variable. So this is what we're creating with this file. This right here. Entity. If you notice 02, 01, 03, these are all entities. These are the phenotypes what you're creating. So think of this, maybe this might be phenotype 01. It really depends on your scheme and how you're creating things. So if you don't want all of them, great, like you don't have to have them. So this is just laying them out, your entities. So you have entity male 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, and the women, right? Now, make sure all of those match these three. You know, you got your meshes, you got your animations, and then the entity that aligns with your mesh variable. Those are all important because I might just pull those back up. Keep to my right, drag these back. So I got these three right here. So if I were to go to portraits, and I were to open up my human portraits, and then if I were to go to my set selectors, this is for clothing, hair, and whatnot, whatever you're adding with the layers. So if I were to go to human 01, open that one. This right here is my variable for the clothes selector. So if I were to copy that and drag it over to, this is the portraits from over here. This is what keeps your base. So 0, 1 to 10, right? This right here means that there's 10 color variants if you were to go. Obviously it's empty, but you see that there's 10. Now, if I were to go females, for the template, there's that 40, right? So if I were to go back to female, there's that 40. So we got that. If I were to change clothing, clothing is going off of right here. So this has to be the same. If I want to pick up this variable, that variable needs to be same as this variable. See how they're the same? Then now it's going to call this array. When it calls this array, it's going to call these for the defaults, your species scope, pop scope, leader scope, and whatnot. If it's a hashtag, it's just not going to show. So it's best when you're creating your leaders and whatnot to do this route. Add another, copy and paste it, and go governors and whatnot. It's clean. If you start adding stuff like this, be mindful that it might show your base. Might show your base or something. So it's kind of glitchy. You gotta work with it. With the, you know, you might have to change a few things to get it. Might be tied to this also. So it's just know that a lot of things are getting tied together when you're creating your mesh. So be mindful. It's easier, like I said, just to, you know, if I want a new armor set for the governor, just go down this list. Now, if I were to go from this scope, it is what it is, you know. This will obviously pop up for your rulers. So it's, you could probably copy and paste this part into it for the leader scope, maybe. But just be mindful. You could do like one at a time and probably works just fine. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. As long as those are tied to with the variables, then you're good. Here's the entity. So this is 1, right? And then here's 3. I skipped 2. Here's 3. So this is going to be phenotype 2. It's going to be phenotype 3. This is going to be phenotype 4. So you can have so many of these meshes in here. You can have as many as you want. They're really realistically the same thing. It's just a different variable. This is to maintain if you want to use a different mesh for that particular phenotype. So if it's the same thing, you're just going to copy and paste it and just number it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you don't have to worry about anything about entities because you're just going to do the same thing for your portraits. You're going to make sure it has the same right here, the same. So you could literally copy this and paste it and just rename this to 2, or you can even keep it to 01, you know, because realistically, yeah, realistically it's the same things you're pulling off of. So you could keep that the same as that one. Should be fine. Just know that right here, this right here is what's holding the bases with the character textures, I believe. So it's just easier to number it 01, 01, 02, 02, 03, 03, and move forward. If you want your greeting sound, this is where you want to change your sound, or if you have a new variable, that's something else. So got those, your animations, your animation file, your variable. Here's your animation variables right here, your mesh file, your mesh variable, your entities. That's it. So you save everything, rename everything. It'll be easy. For example, if I were to take this whole thing, I like this whole layout, and I just want to change the images. Great. So if I want to do that, all I have to do is just rename human 01. If I were to rename that to anything else, anything I want to, you know, I don't know. So if you were to name it, however, hit replace all, great. Now you have it. If you were to do the same, great. You know, I don't know why Notepad is adding some enters, but great. You know, you just do the same. I like to use Notepad++, but I'm just giving you an example with the default Notepad. Just copy and paste, bam. If you were to change everything, just know when you do that, that 01, your naming scheme too. So if you want to change your naming scheme, it's best change your naming scheme to however you want. You know, it's not that difficult to figure out what your naming scheme is going to be. If you're using armors or whatnot, it's good to use like some type of base, maybe like a neck up head, and then add the armor to it, just like how she is. It's like neck up and then the armors. So that's about it.